Welcome back to Star Narratives, the podcast. This is your go-to for accessible and relatable astrology designed to help you understand your inner workings and spiritual awakening. I'm your host, Natha Perkins. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another week. I am Natha, and we are going to talk about the gifts of Virgo. You were thinking that all I had to say about Virgo was about how problematic Virgo is, but that is not true. Virgo comes with a lot of gifts, and Virgo is actually a really useful archetype. And we wouldn't really get anything done, and we wouldn't really have much structure to our lives. And without getting things done and without having structure, we would not have the satisfaction that we do have because of this Virgo archetype that we all have within us. So before I start, I want to say that if you're new to this podcast, I'm going through all of the sun signs, spending 4 or 5 weeks with each one, really talking about all of the different archetypes. But it's so much more than just astrology. We're just using astrology as the organizer. It's like the trapper keeper to help you understand your psyche and how you relate to your life, how you show up in your life, because really astrology is just a system for understanding how your own psychology works. And we each come in with a soul's desire to understand our gifts and our shortcomings. And most of us, we kind of like play out the same patterns that everybody else plays out all the time. So we are unique and special, and we are completely not. But astrology has a really beautiful way of explaining yourself to yourself. And there's a whole bunch of spirituality woven in as well. So make sure to listen to all of the episodes. All of season 5 spends about the first 20 minutes on a teaching that will help you self-inquire, understand yourself, and really get the downloads. Isn't that why we like listening to other people? We like reading memoirs, that we like to have them explain stuff to us that actually makes the light bulbs in our brain go off. And we think, oh God, I do that, or I have experienced that, or I am working with the traumatic after effects of that. And that's where the healing starts. So make sure that wherever you are listening or watching, to like, subscribe, leave me comments. Everything is on an algorithm, and it just helps push the info out so that more people can find me and find this info. I think that it is a time where we all need as much help as we can get. If you like my style, you can find more of my work at electraastrology.com. And of course, spread the word, tell your friends, recommend this podcast. Virgo is actually a really sweet archetype and a sweet energy that we all hold within us, because it is the energy of wanting to help, wanting to grease the wheels, wanting to make sure that things are easy. It is the helping out our fellow man archetype. Aquarius is about humanitarianism as well, but Aquarius is so mental. And Virgo is so much about the actual physical labor of service, of doing things to help other people and doing things to help ourselves as well. So if you think about the satisfaction of a job well done, imagine that you have a cleaning project that you need to work on and you keep putting it off, but finally you sit down and you actually do it. And then afterwards you look around and it just feels so good. It feels so fresh. You've gotten rid of so much junk. It creates this space in your life, in your psyche, for you to keep going. And that's one of the beautiful things about Virgo, is that when we're willing to just show up and do the thing, we get some really good rewards from doing it. And of course, Virgo is a sign that can be centered on helping others. And I think a lot of us learn, like we're trained that we have to help others. It's about doing the chores because you're a part of the household, being a part of a team, right? But in the same way that we tend to be our most critical of self, I talked about last week in the shadow episode, we also find the most fulfillment when we are able to do things for ourselves. Now, of course, we're doing things for ourselves. We're keeping things nice. We're keeping things tidy. And we can do that for other people as well. And we can really enjoy their appreciation of what we have done for them. One of my favorite spiritual teachers, Teal Swan, years ago talked about the idea of helping somebody, being charitable, and how we don't always feel like being charitable to every single person. In fact, sometimes you might be, and I'll use the example of a person that is on a street corner holding up a cardboard sign asking for money. Have you ever noticed that sometimes you drive by a person like that and all you want to do is lock your doors and roll up your window and you don't feel compelled to help them at all? But then sometimes you drive by people and you're digging in your purse looking for spare bills before you even realize that you're doing it. Because there's some sort of vibrational match between you and that person where you feel like, I want to give to them. I want to share what I have with them. And that is what we are always looking for with the higher side of Virgo. That's one of our Virgo gifts, is that we give of ourselves, we give what we have, we share our wealth, we share our labor, we share our ideas, and we do it because it actually lights us up. It makes us feel really happy. I remember one time with my daughters when they were younger and we were driving out of the parking lot and we had bought a 12 pack of tacos for this group of homeless people that were sitting on the curb as we were pulling out. And we really enjoyed sharing those tacos with those people. They were so gracious and they were so excited. They all clapped. And the three of us drove away just feeling a little bit lighter, like we had done something kind for a group of people for no reason other than that we just felt compelled to do it. That's what we're always looking for with Virgo. And if you think about all of the times in your life where you've given or you've shown up for somebody, you have helped ease their situation a little bit, and that way that your heart just feels lit up, the way that it has energized you and made you feel alive and vibrant, that is one of the gifts of Virgo. So just take a minute and take some deep breaths into your heart. Remember that Virgo rules the nervous system. So we're going to be talking about that in a future episode. The difference between having an unsettled nervous system, one that is stressed out, that is worrying about doing something wrong or a mistake that has been made or something being imperfect, like we talked about last week, that jacked up nervous system, it's so uncomfortable and it's so prickly. And there's always this nagging sense of something's not right, something needs to be different. But if you take a minute and think about the last time that you helped somebody, maybe you just said something kind to them. Maybe you were able to give them some advice that changed their day. Maybe it was a dollar bill that changed their day. Maybe you just lifted up a heavy watermelon for an elderly person at the grocery store that was struggling. Think about the last time that you did something like that. The sense of relief or joy that fills you after you've done that. And so, yes, you've done the favor for them, but you've also really done it for yourself. And that's what I believe Teal Swan was referencing. We know the people that are in alignment for us to help because we know that after we help them, we feel really good about it. And there are going to be some times when you give of yourself or you offer a favor to somebody and they are not going to appreciate it. They are not going to reciprocate it. They're not going to make you glad that you helped. And in hindsight, I think that's an indication maybe that person wasn't totally in alignment for me to help. Like we talked about last week, maybe I said yes to something that I didn't want to do, and now I'm a little resentful about it. Or maybe I did something that I had no business doing. You wouldn't pick up a heavy watermelon for a person that was struggling if you had a torn muscle in your back. But think about how often we end up trying to give or assist or lend our wisdom to people that don't want it. Or rather, we try to give to people when we are not equipped to give anything. So there's a differentiation that we're trying to make here as we're looking at this archetype. It is about showing up the day-to-day, what do I need to do in order to feel like I've made a difference today kind of energy. And that is really what makes it worth it. So if you think about this Buddhist concept of chopping wood, carrying water, and it's this idea that you just keep showing up and you just keep doing the mundane things just because that's how it works. But when you are chopping wood and you're carrying water, you always have enough and you have some reserves. And so then life becomes more easeful. And there is a flow where you stop having to pay attention to the tiny little details and everything that needs to be done because you know there's going to be enough. You're putting in the consistent day-to-day work and you are going to be supported. Now, Virgo and the sixth house rules our day-to-day activities, our habits, and our routines. So a Virgo thing is to make sure that you're brushing your teeth every night and every morning, making sure that you're flossing your teeth every night. And so it's these little things that can feel very boring and they can feel mundane. And that's always a complaint of the earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. It's like they do get boring and they become mundane, and yet they keep things going. They're the bones of the operation. And that's another thing that we can really appreciate about Virgo. So think about Virgo season. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, it falls in that season where it's time to harvest. Harvesting is a lot of work, and it does require every single day going back out and gathering what is now ripe, what is now fresh. You can't harvest all at once because things are at different levels of ripeness. It is a day by day thing where you keep going out and you keep doing the work. And eventually your kitchen counter becomes filled with this bounty, whether it's a literal bounty of fruits and vegetables, or it's just the bounty, like I said, of having done the work, having done the consistent work. When you brush and floss regularly and you go to the dentist and your hygienist says, your teeth look great, that is one of those Virgo approvals that just feels really good. So it's not that we're always seeking out this grand sense of approval from people or from ourselves. It's more about finding the joy. And in fact, I would go so far as to say it's not about getting approval at all. It's actually about tapping into what feels really good. It feels like an achievement. It feels when you get that A from the hygienist, it's like, I did a good job and I did it for myself. All of that hard work is paying off. And it's not just paying off because I'm getting a gold star. It's paying off because I'm establishing really good routine and really good health for myself. So a lot of times the Virgo stuff, it can falsely show up as chores we must do for other people, ways we must serve other people in order to be seen as good, as perfect, etc. But the truth is that underneath that, the real richness of this Virgo archetype is in being able to serve yourself, harvesting the fruits and vegetables so that you have nourishing food in the winter. Because Virgo is about us being human, it's what we need in order to just navigate this earthly plane. It is important that we are learning about consistency, nourishment, showing up and doing the work. The sixth house, which is the house of Virgo, rules health. And a lot of times what we'll see is that when we are developing poor habits, when we are overextending ourselves and paying too much attention to helping other people and giving of ourselves to other people, that it's our health that actually ends up suffering. When I'm reading a chart for somebody and they have a bunch of Virgo in their chart or they have a bunch of planets in their sixth house, a lot of what we always talk about is how drained they are and how exhausting they find their life to be. And a lot of that is because the lesson is in learning to slow down, watch where you're putting your time and energy and effort. Too much outgoing effort to people that is not in alignment with what you want to do, with what really lights you up, is always going to drain you and it's going to tax your nervous system. But what we find is that when we back off of the overdoing and the people pleasing, and we really focus on doing the things that feel good for us, that are nourishing to us, that we're able to help more people. We are also able to help them from a place that is less resentful, so it's cleaner. And when you are being helped by somebody or somebody's doing something for you and they don't want to do it, you can feel it. It doesn't feel good. You feel like you're in imposition. And a lot of this really takes this dedicated work because we're so accustomed to showing up and doing it anyway. We're trained at home to do the chores, even though you don't want to do them. And we're trained in school to follow the rules and to be nice about it. It's very much about this cultural expectation that we do things, we do them fast, we do whatever is asked of us, and we do them pleasantly. And there will be some things that you have to, it's just navigating around a world full of people. But when you're in your day-to-day life and you're really looking at this idea of nourishing self, of developing the routines and rituals that really support you in what it is that you're trying to do, which is soothing your nervous system, having a life that feels good, having a life where there is satisfaction and a job well done and having enough, it takes this reframe, and it can feel like a constant reframe. It's a practice. Sixth house is the house of practice. Rarely do we become perfect in the sixth house, but we do build the muscle, and we get better and better at saying no to helping the people that are not in alignment. And we can tune into our physical bodies to get that sense. That's that person that you roll up your window and you lock your door, my body is giving me a clue that this is not the person to help. And then when you feel your heart open and you're automatically saying yes, and it feels so good, that's the person that you are going to help. It's in alignment. It is supportive to you. Your homework this week, if you choose to take it on, is to practice that present moment, that taking a deep breath, feeling into what your body is telling you and saying, is this in alignment for me to do right now? Is this help that I have the energy and the bandwidth to give? All right, let's talk about the astrology of the week. If you're watching this, I have extra points on this zodiac wheel. I'm not going to talk about them, but I like to look at these points just to see what's going on for extra info. But I want to start off by reminding everybody that the last few weeks have been asking a lot of us. The last few weeks have felt very unsettling, and there's been a lot of old stuff from our history, from our past, that's been coming up to the surface to be looked at through the lens of more awareness. And you have more awareness now than you have ever had. It's continuing to build, but this is just to say there's a lot in the field. We had Uranus station to go retrograde on Sunday, the 1st. We had Pluto change signs going back into Capricorn on Sunday, the 1st. Last week, we also had Mercury stationing to go direct. Now we begin this week right off the bat with a new moon in the sign of Virgo, which means that we are in the dark moon phase. The dark moon phase is typically meant for us to be inward and be examining our innermost experiences. So that's been happening while there's been all of these changes in the sky and all of these dynamics. So we begin with this new moon in Virgo at 11 degrees. This new moon is in an exact square at 11 degrees to Persephone. Persephone, I don't typically read for, but I find it interesting, especially because times are so Plutonian, meaning that there's a lot coming up from the underworld. And that underworld is your past, it's your repressed emotions, it's the things that you have not eliminated yet that are wreaking havoc. Old emotions that we haven't digested and we haven't eliminated. And that is always what Pluto is asking us to do. And Persephone was Pluto's wife. Persephone was the daughter of Ceres, the asteroid. Ceres was the goddess of the cultivated land, and Ceres had the experience of Persephone, her daughter, being stolen from her by Pluto, the lord of the underworld. But I always look at Persephone as this inner desire that we all have to explore our inner world, even when we also want to be a part of this world. So we're being asked to go so deep right now. And this is a week where you see over here that the South Node in a conjunction with Venus and Black Moon Lilith and Juno. So I'm going to talk about that in a second, but there's a lot that's coming up. So this new moon in Virgo is kicking off eclipse season. So that means that we are on, once again, a precipice of quite a bit of change and shift. A new moon in Virgo is all about getting prepped, getting a sense of your schedule, of how you are going to create your routines. What kind of habits do you have? What kind of habits do you need to implement? Because this is going to take that chopping wood, carrying water kind of energy. So this is a really good week to sit down, do some journaling, and just make a little plan for how to proceed even when the going is tough. And it's not to say that everything's going to go to hell in a handbasket. It's just as you can think back how the energy has been the last few weeks, things feel a little bit slow. They feel a little bit confusing. Almost every reading that I have done has had some version of, I feel like I can't move forward as a theme. And so know that that's that Neptune at 29 degrees, making everything feel really still and frustrating. Speaking of Neptune at 29, it finally switches to 28 degrees this week. It's been at 29 degrees since May. And that 29th degree of Pisces, it's that moment of death or that moment of birth. Neither of those moments we understand. And all we can do is cross our fingers and hope it goes as planned. And that's part of why we're all in that Virgo mode of wanting to plan and wanting to know and wanting to predict. And then the other side of that, the Pisces says you can't have any of that. All you can do is wait and tune into your spiritual practices as you wait. I think it's also worth noting that on September 2nd, Mercury, which is now direct, but still in the shadow, is making its third trine to Chiron. So this is helping us to understand what it is that we're thinking about, how our minds are working, and our belief systems are all up for review right now. Remember that the way that we are accustomed to seeing the world, the things that we have always believed in, may be crumbling. We may be starting to see truths that we were unable to see before. We may be changing our minds about stuff and realigning with different groups, different people, different desires. And that is connected to this Jupiter in Gemini. So on the 3rd, we have the South Node with a conjunction with Venus and Black Moon Lilith, and then Juno is hanging right here. You know, those are all the relationship elements in the chart. So Venus is your value system and what it is that you desire and the relationships that you wish to have. It's like the ideals of relationship. It's the romance, it's the passion, it's the partnership. And Juno is what we commit to and that we are willing to remain in relationship even when things aren't perfect, even when the other person is driving us crazy. Black Moon Lilith is our core wound. And a lot of times that core wound, unlike the Chiron wound, that core wound points more specifically to past life wounding and the things that possibly caused us our death, our demise. Black Moon Lilith themes always bring up the internal sense of something is going to go wrong. I'm going to be in trouble. This feels too big. This problem feels too big to solve. So South Node is about the releasing and needing to get rid of stuff. So this is really complicated relationship astrology that we're all going to be doing this week. Know that any difficulties, any fights, anything that comes up that makes you want to scream, makes you want to strangle somebody, that this is all really good information for you. And it is not about the other person. What is here within me that is unprocessed? And because we're looking at the archetype of Libra, this is all about that smiling, people-pleasing part of you that says, okay, sure, whatever you want, honey. I'm willing to change myself so that I can be more palatable to you, and continuing to discard that. North Node in Aries is right across the way, and that is the reminder that your power is in your strength. Your power is in moving toward your passion. In order to move toward your passion, you have to understand what that is, and you might have to let go of any tendencies that you have to keep the peace. So the high side of Libra, and one that you can strive for, is justice and integrity. So knowing that if you do get into issues with people this week, especially over relational disputes, that you want to make sure that you remain as firmly embedded in your own integrity as possible. If you say something cruel, go back and apologize. If you are wanting to blame the problem on them and conveniently not looking at yourself, take out a mirror and look at yourself. It's really important that you're no longer acting out in these old ways, these old relationship patterns of, it's not my responsibility, it's the other guy. And we're going to see a lot of dysfunctional relationship patterns show up as we move through elections in the US over these next 4 months. So use what you see as an example for what not to do in your own relationships. On the 4th, we have Mars at 29 degrees of Gemini. It's making a quincunx to Pluto. It's going to change signs into Cancer. Mars does not like to be in Cancer. It is at its fall position. It's the weakest when it's in Cancer because it is so emotional. So another indication to not let emotions drive you. You don't want to start fights and remain in fights just because you are emotional about something, or your emotions are telling you that your feelings are hurt and you demand an apology, et cetera, et cetera. This is deeper than that. As Mars travels through Cancer, it's much less about indulging in your hurt feelings and your moodiness, and more about knowing when to take space and to go into that crab shell and regroup, so then you can come out stronger. On the 7th, we have the Sun in an opposition to Saturn. Let's just say it like this. This is a taking responsibility for your own stuff kind of week. And we like that because it means that you are empowered. You're empowered whether you want to have a good, clean, open conversation with somebody. You are empowered to delve into your own emotional reactivity. You are empowered to improve your relationships. You are empowered to see your own hand in how relationship dysfunctions are happening in your life. You have all the power this week. And that means that you have to take all the responsibility for where you are going and who you are spending your time with, and whether you want to spend time with them or not. I think that's really the bottom line of all of this astrology, is that you get to decide. And we have done all of this work together over the past several months, where we have come to understand ourselves on a deeper level, come to look at how our minds work and how our bodies give us information, how we interact with other people, how we relate to our emotions, how our mother, our father, our king, our queen, our advisor, our government, how all of that comes in and is always working on our behalf, hopefully, how it is always working. Sometimes it can feel like it's really dysfunctional, but we always have that control, that ability to move in and be a good king, a good queen, a loving mother, a supportive father, and a helpful advisor. This is where we start to put everything that we have learned into action. And it's really important as we move through the next few months, because it's getting hot in here. If we are frogs and we are in a pot of boiling water, the temperature has been moved up in increments for a while now, and we're starting to feel it. But it's nothing that we can't get through. Just need to be mindful and self-aware, and we're in it together. All right. Hope you have a wonderful week. Talk to you next week. Thanks so much for joining me. If you have enjoyed what you have heard, like, subscribe, leave a message, leave a review. You can find me on Instagram at Electra_astrology, or on my website at electraastrology.com.